Hello everybody and welcome to another Applied Hermetics with Rufus Opus. This is Rufus Opus and I am happy to be seeing you guys today. Today I'm going to be talking about Zeus the All in All. I am kind of excited about this. It's the first chance I've had to really kind of get into the nitty gritty of what I've been exploring with the Dervani manuscript and things that I have been learning with that. So anyway, I'm pretty happy with all of that. I hope that my chat is working here. Let me see if I need to refresh this real quick. Anyway, if I'll keep an eye on the chat. If I don't see anything popping up, I might have to refresh that, but we'll see. Anyway, so if you do want to tap into this, do feel free to comment. I will be taking comments and responding to them as we go along. Okay, so without further ado, let me see if I'm ready for what comes next here. Okay, all right. I'm gonna go. This is gonna look ugly for just a second. There we go. Woohoo! All right, cool. All right, hopefully you're seeing this now. This is the actual presentation I'll be speaking from. Let me just, yes, okay, cool. Whoops. All right, there we go. All right, so today we're going to be talking about Zeus Pantocrator, the actual Zeus all in all. He's the guy that is the creator of all, the ruler of all, the king of all, our Lord and Savior Zeus, who I am here to tell you all about. Zeus Soteria, Zeus our ultimate being, in whom we live and move and have our being. He is the breath of all breath, and we are his expressions of his breath. We move within the winds that are his breath. We move within all that is him, and he is all in all and within all of us. We really are him. So we'll be getting into all that stuff and how that all works here as we go along. So the backstory. So this is going to take a little bit. So the cosmology of existence. We have had various ways of explaining how we all got here and what it all means as human beings across our history, as across the course of magic and occultism. We have been presented at various times with various ways of interpreting what's happened. Within my tradition of occultism, like I study modern occultism from a Western, what they say is a Western perspective, but mostly it's European occultism that basically was available to Americans in the 1990s through Red Wheel Weiser. So a lot of Crowley, a lot of Robert Anton Wilson, and a lot of Donald Michael Craig's presentation of ceremonial magic went into training my perception on things. Eventually I got tired of modern occultism because I got to know a lot of modern occultists at the time, and they left a bad taste in my mouth, and I thought that it was all because of the Golden Dawn being terrible. So I jettisoned all that and went back to first sources and traced it all the way back to Neoplatonism and all that stuff, and I thought that I'd found everything good in that. So but fundamentally, having a cosmology is super important to having a good practice as you move forward through all of this stuff. So when I was going back through everything, I tracked it back to Plato. Plato's Timaeus is like the earliest form of what became the Neoplatonic emanationist theory of magic that you see in a lot of modern occultism. In Kabbalah, you'll see it presented as Kabbalah, the 10 spheres of emanation. That's based on the Sefer Yetzirah, which is an emanationist model that's based off of the Persians that developed when the Hebrew tribes were carried off to Babylon. All of a sudden they developed the Sefer Yetzirah, and the Sefer Yetzirah is a emanationist model of the universe that reflects the Chaldean understanding of existence at the time. And then like that becomes in Neoplatonism. Once it meets Neoplatonism, the Sefer Yetzirah turns into the more traditional Kabbalism that we are familiar with today, with the 10 spheres of the tree of life and the emanations from the nothing into where we are today. The Neoplatonic model originally was like, so in Timaeus, Plato laid out that there was the good, and the good was at the core of everything, and everything that came from the good was good, and it was meant to be good. And it tells a story of how the stuff of human beings was mingled in the stuff of each star, and every man and woman has a star that is related to them in the heavens and all that stuff. So very interesting way of looking at things, but sort of backwards, and definitely talks about how women are not given a portion of souls themselves, which is pretty awful. So anyway, Timaeus has like one of the oldest sources of this idea that there was a goodness, a spirit of good that manifested as all these things. In the Divine Pymander, we see it expressed as the good having like all the blessed intentions, and then expressing itself through the logos and the word, co-mingling with the co-creator, or whatever it was called, the workman, and the workman mind and the logos mind together created the entire universe and all this stuff. Basically, it talks about how everything was light, and everything that existed was pure light, and it was the pleroma, and it was the Ein Sof, or the Ein, the Ein Sof, and the Ein Sof, or it was all of existence was just pure light, and somehow it became aware of itself, and then it contracted from itself, and where it contracted from itself was the smoking mixture of the elements, that when the logos and the workman was expressed into it, it jumped up and it became ordered. So in these models of creation that form the core of what is the Western occult tradition that I practice, each one starts with everything was, and then it emanated in these degrees and in these various levels of emanation to create the forces that ultimately resulted in what we experience in our material existence. And somewhere in there's a story of the creation of the human being and all that stuff. But within all these traditions, it starts with like there's light, it decides to create existence, it contracts, and then we have chaos, and then you have all of the various creation myths pick up at that point. So in Genesis, you have the Spirit of God hovering over the waters. Right, that's happening. That's when the Logos has expressed itself with the workman and has come down to the earth, and is getting ready to create the first human being. Right, that's that moment getting captured there. In Egypt, it's when the Ben stone existed, and I don't remember who it was, ended up masturbating existence into being from the Ben stone. Right, it's still, and in Greece it was chaos, and in chaos in Greece we find. And that's what I'm going to focus on the most here. In Greece, we find that out of chaos came night and darkness and Gaia and Eros. Hang on just a second. I'm gonna switch out of here real quick. Okay, so hey Daryl, how's it going? I just wanted to double check to see if we had any comments so far. Okay, let me see if I can do this from here. All right. Nope. Sorry. There we go. Okay. So the theogonies of Greece, they actually they started out with the Hesiod. If you go back to the Hesiod, the original Greek mythos pops up here, and it starts out talking about like the creation myths of how in the beginning was chaos, and from chaos emerged night and darkness and Gaia and Eros, and then from when Eros emerged, Gaia had this strong urge to copulate and create, and it immediately created Uranus, and Uranus ended up having they had babies, and then you had the whole creation myth of how Uranus wouldn't let the Titans out, so Gaia had Kronos cut off his phallus with a flint sickle, and then when that happened, Uranus like contracted and went up into the sky, never to touch the earth again, and his phallus was still, according to some myths, it was still hovering in the skies, and it became the sun. And it like the sun is the cut off phallus of Osiris. And if you're into Thelema, you're going to be familiar with how the sun is On, and On is the sun, and the sun is God, and anyway, the whole God is the sun is not a new thing, and the idea that the sun is the phallus of God that was cut off as part of the mythology is part of Greek and part of Egyptian mythology. So anyway, the sun is the phallus of Uranus, according to some interpretations of that myth. So there we go. That's where we're at when Kronos invented or created the Golden Age, and that was when he and the other Titans were hanging out. Everybody except for the ugly ones, the Cyclopes and the Hecatonchires. The Hecatonchires were not allowed to hang out because they were too ugly. They had 100 hands, and basically he didn't want them hanging out with them. So he shoved them back into their mother's womb, or down by hell, or something like that. Oh, he put him. That's right. He put him in Hades, down by Tartarus, and his mother didn't like that. And he was eating all the other children that he had. There's also about how he like swallowed his children. So he swallowed all of his children except for Zeus. His mother Rhea was sick of it and tricked him and gave him a stone, and so he swallowed the stone instead. And Zeus was raised off in the cave by Almethea, the nymph or goat who raised her. So anyway, Zeus was then raised in a cave. Cronus and Rhea basically repeated the story of Gaia and Uranus, and then Rhea had Zeus. Zeus is raised in this cave. He's trained by Metis. Metis is the goddess of cunning, wisdom, magic, pharmacoia. She teaches him how to create the herbs, the drink that he uses later to put his father to sleep. Metis is also cunning and wisdom, that attitude of the magician, that attitude of confidence and self-confidence and slick, self-awareness of what you can do and what you can accomplish when you are an active manifestation of the deities that we are working with. That metis, the word metis actually refers to an attitude and a personality trait as much as it does a goddess, and specifically the goddess of what we now call sorcery and magic, because it was pharmacoia and the use of the invisible to impact the physical. He's trained by Metis. He becomes like Metis. He marries her in some stories. He goes in, he frees his siblings, right? This is like part of this whole thing is like if you think about it, he's basically being raised to be a rebel. He's a rebel that was raised to rebel against his own father in secret, with like the Karates banging on their shields around him to cover up his cries. He finally sneaks into his father's court, right? And there's I can't find it, but there's a myth where he like invents drinking games and he tricks the gods into playing these drinking games every night, and that's how he ends up putting all the Titans to sleep and giving his father the emetic that makes him throw up his brothers. So he poisons his father. His father pukes up his brothers. Him and his brothers all flee, and they head off to get arms and armored from basically they go to hell. Thank God for this. Is where Hecate earns her parts that Zeus gives her after he defeats the Titans. Hecate is basically the we know that she's the key holder to the realm of Hades and hell, and we know that that's where the Hecaton Kyres were stored and put, and we know the Hecaton Kyres are the ones that Zeus frees, and he releases them so that they end up burying the Titans. So it's actually through his resort to Hecate and the powers of the underworld. By releasing those powers and harnessing them for his own use, he was able to defeat the Titans and establish himself as the king of the gods. He ends up establishing himself as king of the gods, right? And then he's the Olympic king, and he rules over the Olympians, and we have the heroic age, right? And we have all the stories of Heracles and all that stuff. In the Orphic tradition, there's all the stories of the 5 kings, that Zeus is the final king who receives the scepter of Phanes, or Phanes, or however you want to say that. I don't know how to say it. I've never said it out loud. But that god Phanes or Phanes is the cosmic Orphic egg, and by consuming it, Zeus becomes the demiurge, right? In the Dervani manuscript, and we'll talk about that in a minute, it's not that he consumes the sun, the phallus of Uranus, and becomes the demiurge. But basically, what happens is so after he becomes the Olympic king, and he has all the stories that we hear about with Leto and the swan and all the different ways that he got into trouble with Hera and all that stuff. After he'd done all that stuff, he gets troubled, right? He starts to have these dreams and nightmares, and he goes to Night, and he's afraid to enter the cave of Night. He's afraid of Night because she is the oldest. She's the first to emerge from chaos. But so he goes to the edge of the cave, and he tips his toe into the darkness of the cave where Night lives, and asks for help with his dreams. And she gives him a prophecy that says he's not only to overcome his father, but he was to overcome the entire universe. And she reveals to him that the universe was created according to this method of continual overthrowing of the father and destruction of what came before, and that cyclic striving to destroy creation. She revealed that was the cycle that was set when the universe originally was created, and that they were doomed to repeat it, and that's why he was going to be doomed to have another child come and replace him. So if he swallowed the phallus and recreated the universe, he could change it, and that's what he ended up doing, right? So he goes up and he swallows the sun, and when he does, he recreates the universe in his own image, and he breaks the cycle of death and rebirth. And now it's the age of creation and creativity, but it's flawed because he doesn't. Anyway, we'll get to that. So anyway, that's basically the cosmology of existence that we're talking about, from the Hellenic Greco theogonies of the Orphic tradition that have influenced Hermeticism and subsequent occultism today. All the stuff in the Golden Dawn and Thelema, if you track it back far enough, these are the myths that shaped Crowley's thinking when he came to the table to figure out how to put together his myths, or his mass. When he's talking about Ophale, the phallus that he's invoking is the phallus of the sun. It goes back to Phanes. He's actually referring to Phanes, the generative principle that was created when Eros emerged, and everything subsequently came into being. That desire to create is what is being referred to in that solar phallic cult of Thelema, and all that stuff of the rose cross, the marriage of the rose and the cross, the union of the rose and the cross, and Rosicrucianism, that mythic revelation of what we experience in the union of opposites, that sublimation of individuation, when we dissolve that sense of self, and when we resolve the fact that we are part of that Zeus all in all, that thing is part of us. That's that mystery that's being revealed there. It's that mystery of that oneness with deity that is already in effect. It's just bringing it to conscious awareness temporarily. So anyway, that's the cosmology. So we're going to talk about the Derveni manuscript now. The Derveni manuscript is where this interpretation comes from. The Derveni manuscript is an Orphic mystery tradition. It turns out that the Orphism is a bunch of practices, a bunch of texts that have been created and presented and anyway, it's a bunch of really cool stuff that gets labeled as Orphism, but it's not necessarily Orphic. The Derveni manuscript is an Orphic mystery tradition. It's one that does not align to the theogony, the theology and the cosmology necessarily of what is standardly accepted as Orphism. So standard Orphism, if there were such a thing, would be the idea that there was this succession of kings, that Phanes, the Orphic egg, was created and through a succession of kings, including Kronos and Uranus and Zeus, there were and Night and I think Erebus or something like that. Anyway, there was like a succession of kings of the universe, and Zeus was the last one, but he was supposed to be holding it for Dionysus. But the Titans killed Dionysus, and Zeus destroyed him. From the ashes of the Titans, he recreated Dionysus, or put the pieces back together, or buried the pieces and brought him back together, or put him in his thigh and brought him back together, or in some way managed to bring Dionysus back, and Dionysus was born. And now Dionysus is supposed to be the ruler of the age. Right. Anyway, that's the Orphic tradition. I've got some thoughts about that, but I'll talk about that some other time. So anyway, this is a different interpretation. This says that it's not, and this is an interpretation of the Derveni manuscript. So the manuscript itself has several ways of being read, and I'm relying strongly on Bernanke, I think his name is. What's it? It's called. It's Alberto Bernabe, Bernabe, Alberto Bernabe, and he wrote a paper called The Derveni Papyrus, Many Questions and Some Answers, something like that, and it's available on academia.edu. You should read through it. Basically, it explains all this stuff. So what it is it's a knowledge lecture written by an initiator about an Orphic mystery, and in that Orphic mystery, it's not it's not about Phanes. It's about the actual phallus of Uranus, and he swallows it and recreates the universe from that, at least according to Bernabe. So anyway, the subject of this manuscript is it's a knowledge lecture written by an initiator in the Orphic mystery tradition. So this is actually somebody who did the initiations, or at least part of them. And as part of those initiations, there's this one poem that gets said to the initiate, and this is where the initiator explains to the initiate what that poem meant. So that's what a knowledge lecture is. After an initiation, the guy that did the initiation sits down the person who went through the initiation and says, "Look what just happened to you. This is what it meant." Well, this is where he sits down and explains what this poem meant. And he explains that this is where everything that happened that I just talked about, where Zeus goes to night and receives this oracle and this authority to swallow the phallus of Ouranos. And when he does, he internalizes the universe, right? He swallows all of the universe, and all of the universe that we exist basically became in his stomach. It's like inside of him, inside of the skin of what was Zeus, everything like went back to its primordial essence, like in a cocoon, like when the caterpillar turns itself into a cocoon, everything goes back to squish, right? So he's like got the universe back to squish inside of himself, and everything that is created at that point comes out of that. So that's what the Derveni manuscript is, and that's what the story is that he explains, and that's what has really shaped the way I understand the all thing and what our role is as magicians in this whole place. So here's the actual part of where he explains it. All right, so he swallowed the phallus of Ouranos, who sprang from the ether first. Ouranos, son of the night, who first of all ruled. From him in turn Kronos, and then wise Zeus, holding wisdom and royal honor over the blessed gods. The phallus of the firstborn king, onto which all the immortals grew, blessed gods and goddesses and rivers and lovely springs and everything else that had been born then, and he himself became the only one. Now he is king of all and will always be. Zeus was born first. Zeus of the shining bolt was last. Zeus is head. Zeus is center. All things are from Zeus. Zeus is the breath of all. Zeus, the Moira of all. Zeus, the king. Zeus, ruler of all. He of the shining bolt. In that moment, when he swallowed that phallus and recreated the universe, when he swallowed it, like we call it a phallus, but what it was the generative principle of existence, right? The urge to create itself, that creative principle, that creative urge, the eros, the desire, the want to be, the want to have and experience something. When that infinite pleroma, that infinite essence of all, in that moment that it became self-aware and decided that it wanted somewhere to manifest, it created this sphere of smoking elements all piled on top of itself. It created it out of itself because in that moment it wanted to be, to experience something. It wanted to experience us. It needed us to be in that moment, and it set about all the things that have happened ever since then to get to here. And what we find in this manuscript is a way of interacting with that, of encapsulating it and using it in our lives today to create and manifest our world and change this existence, because it's all part of the same continuation of that initial contraction, right? It's all part of that same thing. So it continues to this very day, right? So he sucked it all into himself, recreated the universe, and he expressed it according to his will. So what does that mean? And I can't make this bigger. I mean, I could make this like 5 or 6 slides, but I don't feel like doing that. So, all right. So what does it mean? So what this myth gives us, the meaning that it gives us, is basically that all of this universe that we experience every day, all of this is on purpose, okay? The universe is Zeus's reinterpretation of how things ought to be. He took a look at how things were going, this ongoing succession of kings and fighting and overthrowing that was going on. He saw that he was destined to have that happen too, and he swallowed Metis, right? In the original Hesiod myth, he swallows Metis and she becomes Athena, and Athena is wisdom. He gains wisdom. He takes in magic and he turns it into wisdom. That's what Zeus does. It's important because that's what we're going to be doing too, right? So anyway, this stuff that he's doing, this universe is he's like the Magus, right? In Crowley's in Thelema, he talks about how when you reach the phase of your work where you attain the title of the Magus, you are you speak your word, and all these Maguses across history supposedly spoke their word, and his word was Thelema, and the word of the law is Thelema, and that's will, and will encapsulates the word of the Thelema of the eon of the Magus Crowley, right? So in a similar way to that, this universe is Zeus's assumption of that essence of the generative principle and his expression of what that means, right? The universe is Zeus's statement of how he thinks it ought to go. This is what he thinks it's supposed to do. That white energy, that white light that contracted because it wanted to be, it all coalesced and it became Zeus. And this is Zeus's idea of how it ought to go. This is his idea of a good fucking time. All right? This is Zeus's idea of what it should be. Keep that in mind all the time, all right? The good, the great stuff that we experience, the bad, the crap that we experience, all of those things, the urges to do one thing over the other, the good thing over the bad thing over the good thing. In the moment where you can cheat or be true, in the moment when you choose to do the good thing or the bad thing, when you do the thing that's going to lead to health and happiness or the thing that's going to lead to pain and suffering, you know in that moment that you can choose to do a thing that's going to lead to promises of reward, or a thing that's going to lead to perhaps reward, but chances are also risk of danger, right? Threat. So in those moments, we could choose to do the good thing or the thing that's risky, that might feel good but is risky. Could hurt us, you know. We are the ones that make that choice. But all of this, right, is on purpose, right? So this choice that we're doing, this figuring out right and wrong, figuring out how to get what we really want without getting hurt in the process, getting the benefit without getting the danger, the rejection, the ridicule, the negative attention, the financial hit to our well-being, threats to our physical health, getting hit, getting hurt, getting punched, getting shot, getting killed, getting murdered for what you believe in, for what you think, for what you did in ignorance, for what you did on purpose, for doing the right thing or the wrong thing. You have to face the consequences of all this stuff, right? You don't know what's going to happen when you make your decisions, when you get up in the morning. Taking a step out on the road is the most dangerous thing you can do, Frodo. You never know where the road's going to lead, right? These are true facts. We don't know what's going to happen. We make our decisions in ignorance in hopes of doing better. Okay? We are reflections of God. We are made in the image of God. We are Zeus on purpose. We're doing the same thing that he's doing all the time. He's trying to figure this out too. He wants to do good. He wants to improve himself. He's trying to figure it out. He's doing it in the same way that we're doing it. We do it through the great work. We do it through the great work. It is the process of turning the excrement into gold. You know, Wilmore's meme about how thou art excrement, but you could be gold. It's true. That's the great work. Okay, that's what we're doing. We're trying to take what's bad and make it good. We're trying to take poorness and turn it into wealth. We're trying to take illness and turn it into health. We're trying to take insecurity and turn it into confidence. We're trying to take our pain and turn it into healing. We're trying to take the suffering that comes from the injustices of others and turn it into the strength to bring justice for others. We're trying to replace the bad with the good. Why do we do that? Why are we trying to advance that? It's because we're part of Zeus and we're trying to figure it out. And some of us are still a-holes. We still do the wrong thing and we're trying not to, hopefully. But then there's the people out there who are actually willfully doing the wrong things for their own selfish reasons because they don't know any better. They're Zeus too. Those a-holes are part of this whole thing and this whole process. And the reason that the great work is important is because as we resolve ourselves and we resolve our problems, so also the macrocosm is being resolved as well. We are the salvation of God. It is through our work, through the passions and the dramas and the choices that we make, that God is figuring out how to do it right, how to improve himself, how to get all of this better. All right? So when I look around at this world and I see how crazy, insane, and ugly we are to one another, all I can think is, God, that sucks. Why? All I can do about it is not do it myself. All right? And that's what I think the great work is all about, is not contributing to that and to help God himself do better by learning to do better for ourselves. All right? And I think that we have a pretty decent way to do those things. Anyway, that's the big reveal about all this stuff. I think that that's what we're here to do, is to be the salvation of God. So what does that mean though? Like how is that actually applied in real life? The thing about, and I wanted to say this too, the great work, the thing about the great work is, yes, we're accomplishing the great work and he's accomplishing the great work through us. But also, if you don't like this universe, you can do a better job yourself. We have the authority to change everything. All right? If you have the inspiration and the aspiration to change this world into a better place, where do you think that came from? Where is that drive coming from? That's the will of God talking to you, telling you that you need to do that with yourself. And guess who has the power of God at their fingertips? The same person who actually knows how to conjure the entities that are used as part of creation. Okay, that's you. You have these features at your fingertips. We have the occult knowledge to understand that all of the universe is us working through ourselves to create an experience for ourselves that hopefully we learn from and do better so that the rest of the universe gets better. But guess what? We get to create it as we go, the way we see fit. We are the manifestations of Zeus. We are the little microcosms of the macrocosm. And if we don't like the universe, we can change it. We just have to do the things. And we have all the powers to do it. We have 7 governors and 4 kings. We can do these things, and it's not impossible. So anyway, that is also kind of the big deal. We are the manifestations of God, and we are the ones that are responsible for this world, the world that we experience. Well, I don't have the power to do all that. Well, guess what? You have the access to the 7 spheres and the 4 kings, and they can provide you with the opportunities to get the powers that you need to materialize the changes that you want. That's what we do. That's what we do with this stuff. I'm tired of seeing people complain about how powerless you are. You aren't. You're not powerless. Your words are power. That's how this world was created. You speak it into being, and you do it every day. And every time you complain about how weak you are, you're making it worse. I'm not saying that you're the source of all your problems, but you are making it worse. You can change it by making it better. Duh. Anyway, so the thing is about all this stuff. All right, so everything that remains in this world, you, me, and this is the thing about you and your value as a human being here, as a person who's seeing this, hearing this. Thank you for listening, by the way. The thing that you are, that you can become, it's part of this whole thing that Zeus is doing on purpose, right? You're part of this whole thing. Oh, there's a plan for me. Yeah, there's a plan for you. There's a plan for this whole thing. This whole process is explained by this Zeus myth, right? This whole thing that we're experiencing. The influx of ideas from the unmanifest and the materialization of it here below, that whole process of creation of things, it's all on purpose. One of the things that Zeus becomes when he swallows this phallus is Zeus Moira. One of his titles is Zeus Moira, Zeus the Fate. It's the fate. The fates are under Zeus. They say that Zeus is afraid of fate, and the Olympian god Zeus, who represents Jupiter and Jove and all that stuff, that Zeus god is under the fates, but the fates are under the source Zeus. It's a different kind of Zeus. That other kind of Zeus is the eternal Zeus, the all all-pervading Zeus. So the Zeus all in all is a part of us, and we are basically, we are the manifestations of God. So anyway, Zeus wants everything that we want. Our desires are indicators of the will of Zeus in our lives, okay? When we understand that we are part of Zeus, and we want to understand what our purpose is in life, and what our power is, and how to have more power, and how to have more impact in the lives around us, and how to be better at things in general, how to improve our well-being and our health and our financial strength, everything that we want is an indication also of what Zeus wants for us, right? It's an indication of that mind of Zeus. And the more you understand yourself, the more you understand the mind of God, right? So that's what Agrippa was talking about in 3 books of occult philosophy. He talks about how the more you learn about yourself, the more you understand the mind of God. It's because we are manifestations and materializations of that one divine Zeus. We are the mouthpieces of God. The things that we create are the ideas of God materializing. We have models of how to create the universe given to us, where Zeus, or the good, the nous mind, speaks things into being through the logos, the word of God. We are Hermetic magicians. We speak things into being. The logos is the word. Hermes is the god of writing. Thoth is the god of writing. Magic is the god of is the process of putting ideas, the unmanifest, into symbols and forms that can materialize and influence forces to materialize things for you. Like an architect can draw a building, give the building to a bunch of builders, and they'll build it. A magician can take an idea from the mind of God, put it together with the symbol sets that represent the elements and the planetary forces that represent the materialization of it, turn it over to them in the form of a sigil or a seal or a talisman with smoke and incense and a ritual at the right time, and it manifests in the material world around us, right? It's the same kind of thing. That's That's what we can. That's what we can do. We are the mouthpieces of God. We are speaking through our magical process. We are taking the unmanifest and giving it form in the material world, in the same way that saying a word takes a thought and makes it manifest through the air. Words. Fascinating stuff. Yeah, so, but we're also the hands and feet of Zeus, the eyes and spies, and the sense organs of Zeus. We're everything about Zeus. We're how Zeus experiences the creation of Zeus. We're how Zeus experiences the creation of other people's ideas of Zeus, right? So it's all about that, right? So let's look at the practical implications. So ideally, when we are in alignment with Zeus, and we can tap into more of his powers of manifestation. So ideally, the more kinds of like meditations and contemplations that you can do, invocations, initiations, the types of magic that gets you into touch with this all thing, our eighth sphere magic, like you do go through the seven spheres and then you conjure Yophiel, thou archangel of the eighth sphere, and ask him to do the initiation into their, you work through the 12 signs of the zodiac. There's archangels of each of those. Ask them for initiations into the signs and integrate those forces into your sphere. But you're looking for understanding the you're looking for a way to understand sort of how everything sort of fits together, and the more you look at things from behind the scenes before the eighth sphere, the more you get a glimpse of the mind of God, right? And the ways to ascend into that are by purifying yourself in each of the seven spheres, right? So like do a purification in each of the spheres to release the negative sides of each of those things. Like, so in the realm of the moon, all lies and deceit that cause harm to me, that I might believe from others, or that I might be projecting into this world, let them be dissolved in the fires of the sun, or something like that. And then do the same thing in Mercury. Let all the evil connections that I make between things for the purposes that cause harm be released, and work through the negative sides of each of the seven spheres to release those negative things from your sphere, and you'll start to see more of the positive things in the world around you. You'll catch more glimpses of how things are connected. Do the magic of the uncrossing and unblocking of the ways. These things open up visions and understanding of how things are connected. Like ask specifically for the spirits of Mercury to remove the obstacles that stand between you and seeing how all things are connected. It's things like that result in initiatory and transformational experiences that, if you want to write a book about, you could write a whole book about, because it changes the way you look at the world around you and the way you connect with it. And that's what this magic that we do is supposed to be doing. It's supposed to be changing us to be better at this stuff, to understand how it works, and to expect the right things to happen when we make the right noises at the right times with the right tools. So anyway, yes. So the more we understand about how it all works, hopefully it results in us being more able to manifest what we want, because we understand that we have more ability to do that. And a lot of the way magic works is through confidence, and knowing that all this shit is working for our favor is a way to be confident. One of the things that I always liked about the crowned creation rather than the pact-based approach to magic is that it means that you just have to rely on the love of your fellow spirits and their goodwill to get by. And that's key to understanding. I mean, for me, being liked makes more sense to me than fulfilling bargains, because everybody I know who relies on bargains cheats, but if people just do things because they want to, that's the only time anybody does anything for real, is because they really want to. So if you rely on the spirits just helping you because they want to, you know they're going to do it for real. If you just expect them to do what's on the paper, I feel like they're more likely to try to cheat. So it has to do with, I think, whether you think justice comes from. I did an interview today with a guy named Chris from Enter the Cauldron, I think. Enter the Cauldron, and it was a great conversation we did, and we talked about how justice either comes from Jupiter or from Mars, depending on what part of history you look at it from. And if you look at justice as an aspect of grace and something that's given to you, and you get to have justice, and you deserve it, it's great. But if you look at it as something that you have to earn or you have to fight for, or you apply to other people, justice is what you get from other people by forcing it on them because it's Mars, you fight for it, then it's a completely different way of looking at it, but it's still just justice. It's just, anyway. There are some meditational things that we can do to connect to the spirits of to Zeus, and that's through Porphyry, and Porphyry talks about Plotinus, and he talks about how Plotinus kept his mind on his tutelary spirit the whole time that he was doing other things. And if you have knowledge and conversation with your holy guardian angel, being in communion with your holy guardian angel as often as you can be is a great way to be in communion with this tutelary spirit, this aspect of the divine, and you'll find yourself knowing more things about what's going on around you in general. And you can do that by, if you know your spirit's name, think about the name of that spirit and picture yourself talking to them. Picture yourself having a connection to that spirit at the back of your head that you think about, and you think about just talking to them and hearing from them and being in communion with that entity and listening for what they have to say about things. That is a Neoplatonic method of contemplative connection with the divine that we have a historic record of in Plotinus and Porphyry's notes about Plotinus's Enneads. Right? It's a method of doing this stuff that's super easy to do. But that kind of thing is how you connect to this stuff. And what this means for magicians, let's look at what the great work is, right? So the great work is all the occult things that we have to go through just to be able to understand what our reason for being here is, and also to have access to all the secret powers of creation that we need to accomplish what our secret reason for being here is, right? So the great work is knowing why we're here and having the power to do the thing that we're here to do, right? The process of finding why we're here is the same process as getting the powers to materialize things, right? So as we go through initiations into the 7 spheres or the 4 elemental kings, we receive the powers to materialize this world, but we also receive the wisdom to do it well, right? And the skills to do it well, not just the powers. But it's a process, and it's a learning process. There's a curve. You do bad at first, and you do better with time. And it's an onion that keeps getting deeper. You have to learn more about yourself and who you are, and you do that by seeing how you act and what you're like. And once you see enough about what you're like, you can kind of get a sense of what you're here about, right? Like, I know how I am. I know what kind of things I do. And they're the kind of things that I would do if I were trying to do a certain thing. And if you look at what my whole life has been like, it looks like I've been trying to do one freaking thing the whole time and failing at it repeatedly. And I didn't know I was doing that. But if you look at it, you can see what I was trying to do now that I've tried a few times. And now I'm finally doing it right, and I'm doing it now that I have a clear idea of what I was trying to get to. I can actually make it happen because I have these 7 sphere initiations, and I have these 4 elements initiations. I have all this occult wisdom, and I have the ability to use it to get worldly power and wealth that I can use to build a foundation for further spiritual attainments for other people. That's what I'm doing, and it's working, and it's easy, and it's not easy, but it's a simple set of things, and then a bunch of work around it. I can't stress how important it is to discover your true will. It is so important to discover your true will. The ways you can do that is to look at your natal chart. You look at your strengths and weaknesses on your natal chart. It gives you a good idea of what your Moira is, what your fate is, what your reason to be here is. It tells you what the forces were doing at the time of your birth, and whatever song they were singing is this tune that you're dancing to the rest of your life. And understanding that, and not treating it as like a doom or a blessing, but as a list of attributes, pros and cons about yourself, things that you're strong in and things that you're weak in. It helps you understand what your planetary focus should be as a magician. You want to strengthen your weaknesses. If you're strong in Saturn and Mars, you're going to be good at disciplinary things, but you're going to be mean, so you got to balance that by trying to be nicer and all that stuff. So Daryl asks, what is a good resource for the Four Kings initiation? There are so many good resources. So a friend of mine, Mal Strangefellow, is Brother Barnabas, and he has a class that he offers on the Four Kings that provides an initiation into the Four Kings. The resource I used was Agrippa's 3 books of occult philosophy. The scale of the number 4 has the names of the kings and the rivers that they rule, and the realms that they rule, and the directions that they rule. So when I did my initiations, I don't have a seal for them. So what I did was I went out and I faced the direction, and I said, "O legend, thou spirit of the kingdom of water, come thou forth and initiate me into your sphere. Help me to understand more about the undines and the river water spirits, and the spirits of rain, and the spirits of the seas, and the spirits of, and all the kinds of water I could think of." And then I asked for more initiations into their kingdom and to understand how their powers work in my life, right? And any esoteric stuff, and that's it. That's the request for an initiation. If you look at the script for the OTO initiations, which I happen to have seen and memorized some of at some points, the parts where you actually invoke the invisible powers, that whatever, it's a very brief part of the ritual, and it's a statement. And all you have to do to invoke the powers that invoke you is make a statement to them. And if you put the Four Kings in for the people that you're talking to, and you say your magic prayer to these magic spirits, you get the magic results. It's almost like all of magic is just like saying prayers to the right spirits at the right times, at the right ways. It's pretty simple stuff. But yeah, the 4 elements, you just ask them for initiations, and then you listen and you apply their lessons, and you actually try to integrate it. The other thing that you need to keep in mind for us is that everything works for us. This system of understanding things, understanding that Zeus is us and we are Zeus, and that everything works together for the greater good of us. It doesn't mean that everything is good. It means that when we see evil, we should do good, and that evil exists and should be overcome. But basically, whenever we set our minds to it, whether we're doing good or evil, everything works together for us, right? Anything that a human being focuses their attention on materializes around them, okay? So like when we do Goetia, all the spirits of the Goetia will work for us. If we work with animals, we'll find ourselves having a connection with animals. It's more interesting and more supportive. When it comes to people, you'll find that the more focused you are on materializing your higher desires, the more the people around you will be drawn to you that are the right people for that, that also will support you in it. You know, I found an amazing resource, a person who has helped me in my career quite a bit after doing some incredible blessing magics of Jupiter and Venus, and it's changed my entire financial situation. You know, and it's through doing that magic to get the favor of people and also to improve my skill sets and the quality of my work, and then showing up to actually do the work and answering the phone in the middle of the night when somebody needs help with a problem, you know, and going a little bit of the extra mile and doing things, you know, and taking advantage of the skills I have, you know. But everything works together for us. The thing about Zeus is that he is the Zeus Moira and Zeus Metis. He is the spirit of all, Zeus Numa. You know, he's Zeus Apontos Numa, or Zeus Pontos Numa. It's Zeus, the spirit of all. Anyway, he's everywhere, and he is the breath of all. He is the will of all, right? So anyway, we can do whatever we want and trust that it is the will of God. That doesn't mean that everything that we do is right or good or healthy. Okay? That's the thing, is Zeus is not a good God. He's not perfect. This is an amazing universe. It is beautiful. It is great. But human beings are really crappy to one another for stupid reasons. All right? We're not good at that. And maybe everything else in this beautiful universe has to exist so that we can have this society of circus and culture, and society and interplay, and society and theater, and society and drama, and all that stuff. And I've got words to say about all that crap in another presentation. But that one will be Zeus the Middle. But today we're just talking about how Zeus is all in all. But anyway, everything works together for our intentions, and it follows whatever we're paying our attention to. So remember that attention is the currency of the realm. Okay, it doesn't look like there's a lot of questions today. That's great. I appreciate everybody. If you do have any questions, do feel free to leave them on the video. I will get back to them over time. I appreciate everybody's attention, and I will talk to you next time.